Well,
Start
interesting
with it.
team.
Start with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the Russians brought over a team that featured not a single player from North America. Jan Kuznetsov probably being the headliner who was cut from this Russian team. But that's not to say they brought over a bad team. It's just to say they brought over an interesting team. Another thing that I found absolutely hilarious and random was they don't have a single righty. Like one, they have one righty, and it's their starting goaltender Yaroslav Askarov. Other than that, like eight left-handed defensemen, all left-handed forwards. And they're not bad forwards, but I'm going to start with Jared because I think if I remember correctly, he had a little opinion on this. What are your thoughts on cutting the North Americans out? And we'll stick to hockey because we know there is ulterior motive here. We'll just flat out and say it. But from a hockey standpoint, what do you think?
Well, I just think it's kind of ridiculous. And again, I'm not that familiar with too many of the Russian prospects that are playing in North America, so I can't exactly go into depth on who specifically was cut from the team. But the fact
Daniil
that
Chaika was a name.
That's
He's
a big
well,
one.
Vegas
Yeah.
yeah, like
prospect.
there was a lot of
Yeah.
big names that ultimately ended up being cut, and I just think it's unfortunate that a lot of people who maybe had the skill to make this team were cut because of those sort of politics and those ulterior motives that you're mentioning. So
Mhm.
again, we don't exactly know the political side, and we're not going to get into the full political side of that. But I think it's unfortunate that a lot of people that had the skill were kind of screwed over a bit for the pure reason that they aren't playing in their home area of Russia, and they decided to move over to North America for just a decision that they thought was the best for them, and they made a decision because that's where they thought they were going to get the best chance, and they're sort of being punished for that by being taken off this team. So I think it's unfortunate that again I can't tell you exactly all the names that were cut off, but there's some pretty big names that probably should have been on this team and were unfortunately, I guess I want to use the word of screwed over, or just that they were punished. They were kicked off
Yeah.
the team purely for the reason that they're Russian but playing in North America. So I don't like it. I don't like to see things like that. Like at the end of the day, I think it should all be a hockey decision. If for hockey reasons you decided your best roster was the one they constructed, then fine. But it's pretty obvious from the
It's
fact that
not.
every single player playing in North America was kicked off the team. Like it's pretty clear. Like that would be quite the coincidence if that was the case. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty clear that it was a decision to kick off everyone. It wasn't just, oh, well, we're making the best team possible. Oh, look at that. It just so happens that it's an all Russian team. Like it's pretty obvious that the people playing in North America were singly picked and, oh, we're just going to move you over there. So I don't like to see things like that. But whatever, that's the team they ended up making. And to talk about their team, they did end up constructing a pretty good team despite the fact that they did that. I don't love to see things like that, but whatever. They're a good team. They're going to be a hard team to play against throughout this tournament. They do happen to be pretty young and inexperienced, I'd say. So for that reason, there's always going to be some kind of question marks until they start playing. We don't exactly know how things are going to work out with them, but one of the most exciting, in my opinion, players to watch out of this Russian team is a player by the name of Matvei Michkov. So he's
There you
a
go.
2023 prospect and is hyped up to be one of the next Russian superstars. He's hyped up as much to be the next best Russian player since Alex Ovechkin. So there's a lot of big names and a lot of hype surrounding this team. Again, we don't exactly know how it's going to work, but there's a lot to be excited about when looking at this team. Their defense as well is fairly strong, but given the fact that it's all left-handed, there's always going to be question marks about how they kind of manage the lineups, how they arrange things. Even the power play, I'm very curious to see how it's going to work out because always on power play, there's a question of, are you going to leave someone open for a one-timer? Like, there's always questions about how you kind of manage it given someone's handedness. So that's going to be, I think, very interesting to take a note of how it actually, if it is even noticeable, the fact that they're all left-handed. So I think there is some kind of interesting storylines. And then, of course, the biggest thing you have to consider, similar to what we said with Sweden, Russia is going to live and die, in my opinion, on the back of Yaroslav Askarov. He's their goaltender. He's very much hyped up as well as Jesper Wallstedt as being one of the most hyped up goaltending prospects in the NHL right now. He's a Nashville Predators prospect, drafted in the first round of 2020. And yeah, he's a great goalie. He currently has a 904 save percentage and a 201 goals against in just a small stint with the KHL. So again, it's not a large sample size, but still he has a lot of hype surrounding him. So it's definitely going to be interesting how this Russian team does. Of course, there's politics and whatever, but as a team, they did end up constructing a pretty good team, despite the fact that I do think they screwed over some some Russian guys playing in North America. But whatever, that's the team they decided to construct. There's all kind of politics surrounding that. They are a good team that I think will be pretty scary going into this tournament.
It's really unfortunate talking about how, guys wanted to come over to North America and they get screwed over. I made this point in our group chat that we famously reference, like God knows how many times. Check it off the bingo card. We reference this group chat. Sebastian Giovinco, if you all don't know, we are a Toronto-based podcast, and Sebastian Giovinco came to Toronto FC. Sebastian Giovinco. Even the American knows. Look at that. That's how big he was. Sebastian Giovinco was one of the best players in Italy. I wouldn't say one of the best in Italy. He was like a reserve on Juventus, who was the best team in Italy. And he comes over to Canada, and he's the MVP of the MLS. He's setting records. He won I think it's called the Landon Donovan MVP. He unanimously. He's a fantastic player. And then he's cut from Team Italy and has never played for the Italian national team again. Italy has a lack of Italy didn't have strikers at the time, and Giovinco was one of the best strikers in Italy, and he's forever banned from the Italian team. He was playing in Saudi now. Rumors are he's heading back to Toronto. But this isn't a soccer podcast. I just want to point out that this happens. Teams don't like it, or countries don't like it when you leave them for the big rich countries, I guess perceived big rich countries like Canada and the United States. But I'll hand it to you, Evan. Talk to me about Matvei Michkov, because he is one heck of a young man, we'll say.
Yeah, I mean, he's gross. I would say he's the next coming of like Evgeny Malkin and Alexander Ovechkin. And the fact that he's still not draft eligible for another year or two is just absolutely baffling to me, because I think he would be, I don't know if he would be a lottery pick, but I definitely think he'd be a first round pick in this year's draft. I think he's that great, but I don't want the critics to get so hard on him, considering the fact that he's only 16 years old and he's going up against guys that have already developed, and there's not much more room for them to develop, but there's a lot more room for Mitchkov to develop into. And I think he's already playing in the KHL, which is just baffling to me. And that's just crazy. And it's just, that's how it goes in Russia, where guys and he's playing with Seska too. And that's not not a bad team. That's a pretty freaking good team. I think they got like Vadim Chipichov there. That's where Kovalchuk used to play. Datsuk was there. I mean, they got some boys there. So I'm really excited for him. The Russian Shane Wright. I'm excited for that team to see what they can do.
Yeah, I threw it to you because I thought you'd have and you delivered. Like you said, you hit the nail right on the head on Matvei Michkov. He's going to be a fantastic player. And if he was 18 years old and still had the skill, he probably, like you said, he probably would be a draft pick this year, like a first round one, which is ridiculous to think that he's eligible in not next year, but the year after that. He had 13 points. 5 points in 13 games. Were you going to say something? Or
no, I was just gonna say it's crazy that
that
there's still 2 more years left before he gets drafted, and guys already want him on the team.
Yeah, he scored 12 goals in 7 games at the Helinka Gretzky tournament in August.
He was great.
He's ridiculous. He's nuts. He's the best Russian prospect. Scouts say the best Russian prospect since Alexander Ovechkin, but has a play style like Nikita Kucherov, and that is disgusting to think about. Because could you imagine Alex Ovechkin with the skill and how good Alex Ovechkin is, but the skill set of Nikita Kucherov, in the sense of, I'm going to dangle you, I'm going to put it through my legs, cross ice pass, or I'll snipe. He has that killer instinct in his eyes. That's something I noticed, my own assessment of Matvei Michkov. He'll just kind of randomly turn into, I'm fucking pissed and I'm just going to go score on you. I'm going to pull a Michigan. I think he's going to pull a Michigan. If there's anyone, flat out, if there's anyone that is going to score a Michigan, it is going to be Matvei Michkov. I know I said that about, I forgot who I said it about. I think it was a Swedish guy, Lisell. it'll be Matvei Michkov. He's so good, and I feel bad for leaving out some of the other Russian players, but this is the guy I want to gloat about because he's 16 years old and he's going to be playing in that top six. Mario, do you have anything to add on the rest of Russia?
The rest of Russia is going to like Jared said, heavily rely on Yaroslav Askarov. He must shine. Good goaltenders will not win you a World Junior Championship. Great goaltenders will. He's got to be a great one. He's an up and down sort of career in the World Juniors, if you want to say that, representing his country. He's a Nashville product, so he's already drafted. And I believe it's his last year of eligibility in the World Juniors. So it's his time now to show what he can do. Because quite frankly, and personally, I don't believe he's shown his true colors of what he can and cannot do, or more so what he cannot do in this World Juniors Championship. If Russia wants to be good, you got to rally around this guy. I want to say one thing about Matvei Michkov.
Of course.
If he don't rely on him, if you have to rely on him, that is, I think that's going to be your biggest weakness. If he's the leader on your team, that is surprising as much as it is concerning. Because what is his age? I know he is an 05.
He's an 05.
He's an 05, so 16.
17. Sorry, he's an 04, but the way it works, he's like a late 04, so he's technically,
exactly. Same thing. So he's extremely young, and putting responsibility and that great of a responsibility in a guy that young's hands, it doesn't usually turn out well. Ask my work career at down in Bolton doing jobs around here. Doesn't work out so well. I've crashed into many things with cars, and it's not a great sign. But again, no, if you're relying on this kid, and he's going to be a terrific kid, I can guarantee you that. And I'm going to spark a debate with you, Adamo, in just a second, because man, this is going to be a fun one to look out for if it so does come to fruition in the World Juniors. But no, this guy's going to be terrific. Just don't rely on him too heavily. In Russia, you will be fine. But if you do rely on him too heavily and you don't get the production from Yaroslav Askarov, the Russians have finished second and third place 8 times the last 10 years. And I've sort of accumulated memories of the Russians with crying. If you have to rely on these two players, there's going to be a little bit more crying for Russian fans and Russian players.
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up, because you don't really want to rely on your youngsters when you have guys who are, born in 2002. Last year they came 4th, and obviously the storyline going into this is, can Yaroslav Askarov finally take the Russians over that hump? Because if you remember, I think it was last year where the joke about Askarov was the guy couldn't hold on to his stick.
Yep.
I feel like he dropped that thing 6 times in one game. It was ridiculous. Maybe to give some shine to the other Russian prospects, Fedor Schwechkov is regarded as the best defensive prospect in the world, defensive forward prospect, I should say, because he is a forward right now. He's playing in, I didn't write it down, but the one that I don't write down, I have to look up. But he's got, I think that's the MHL, which is Russia's version of the AHL with SKA, 11 points in 15 games, 2 goals, 9 assists. He played 4 games in the KHL this year, but he's not really known for that offense. He's good at supporting teammates off the puck. He has good hockey sense, and he uses it to get into open ice. But his main thing is being a defensively responsible forward who can play the center of the wing. And I think we kind of hit it. I know Marat Kuznetinov is probably going to be one of their best forwards. He's a guy to look out for. He's 5'11", 176. Not a super big guy, but a lot of skill. He has 11 points in 29 KHL games this year. Again, with St. Petersburg, I feel like everyone is there. But I think, have we said everything on Russia? Should we move on to our
There's one more
final?
kid, Danila Yurov.
Yes.
He's a 2022 prospect. So should I?
Yeah, go for it. Of course.
Okay, so as I mentioned, there's a kid. He's going to be, obviously won't go first overall this year. It's Shane Wright's draft, but he's going to be not too far behind. He's kind of going to be somewhere in the, I'd say after lottery range of somewhere from 4 to 10 area. He'll be somewhere in there. So this guy, he's a right winger. He's very skilled, but also he's a hard worker. The main kind of scouting report on him is he's a workhorse, but as well, he has the skills like those top players. So picture Zach Hyman, Michael Bunting-esque player in terms of his workmanship, but as well, he could dangle like Mitch Marner. So I don't know exactly if that's the most accurate scouting report, but in general, he has skills, but as well as very hardworking. And I think that's just such a good kind of assessment to have, is that he basically checks off both boxes of the sense that he could play smart more on the defensive side of the game and kind of play like a smart player, but as well, he could kind of have the skill to drive a play by himself. So there's a lot to like with this kid. He did have I was going to say a brief stint, but no, actually, he had quite a stint in the KHL. He had 21 games and didn't record a point. So that, I guess, is a little bit of a knock on him. He kind of has to learn to play with tougher opponents, which will come. There's a lot of examples of that where people don't thrive at the highest league just yet. They need to kind of work at it more, work hard, and eventually one day he will be ready and he will be skilled. There's not a lot of concern there. But then when he was sent down to the NHL, which I believe is like the equivalent of like the AHL to the NHL, I think that's like the lower league. He now is doing very well. He has 12 points in 6 games on, it's called Stalin
Magnitogorsk.
Gorsk. Okay, perfect.
Magnitogorsk.
Magnitogorsk.
Yes.
Yeah,
love the name.
not the best at pronunciation. That's my bad. But yeah, he's overall, he's a very skilled guy. He's someone to kind of keep an eye on when looking at this Russian team. And overall, we said everything I believe aside from that. Yeah, Russia is going to be a good team. That's going to be a great player. And there's a lot to like with this Russian team moving into this tournament.